Hi, welcome to the Shure booth at ISE 2024. My name's Chris Merrick, and I'm very glad to be joined by Mick Heys, Global Vice President of Future of Workspace from IDC. Mick, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, we've done some great collaboration together over the last year or so in terms of some original research to really help with our IT decision makers, CIOs, and so on, understand how they can sort of optimize their workplace experience in the since the pandemic.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of the highlights from that work that we've done you think are particularly noteworthy.
Well, I think we all knew audio quality was important, but the surprise was how important it was.
Mm-hmm.
We asked people, how do you rate it versus video, and of course people kind of rate both of them. But when you do the deep dive into particularly the scientific research that's been done, it just came across as way more important than video. And I suppose at the extreme, if the camera goes, you can still do the call.
Mm-hmm.
If the audio goes, you haven't got anything. But the real shocking part for me really was audio quality is correlated to perception of intelligence and perception of trust. So, if you think you've got your sales team in mixed mode, hybrid meetings trying to sell, and maybe, and we found this in a lot of cases, purchasing of just bought the cheapest microphone.
Yeah.
And that is going to have an impact on your bottom line. And the amount of meetings we're in, that's all day, every day. So just by investing in the audio quality, you just get an advantage that just keeps going on all the time. So that probably was the big shock for me, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously for sure, we're sometimes accused we've got a hammer and we're always hitting the same nail because we've been advocating obviously for good audio. It's a very purpose of Shure. So personally, I find it very really interesting. But with the independent research undertaken by IDC, it actually validated that that point for us. So. That was great. I think one of the interesting things with the insights that you brought was the circle of frustration about how organisations are sort of really making the same mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, what we found was quite often it's the wrong people buying the wrong thing for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
So, and partly because of the pandemic, we had to change and adapt quickly. But it was usually the case that IT and purchasing would just go and buy something that was, shall we say, affordable.
Mm-hmm.
When we looked at the research, the people who intended to buy, price was much higher than audio quality on the list of criteria. Interestingly, the people who'd already bought, it was the other way around. Audio quality was higher than price. They'd learnt the importance. And when we did the deeper dive and went in depth with some customers, we quite often found this thing where they'd spent, in some instances, a lot of money on a system, and then they'd realise the problem. They'd realise that not all the areas of the room, there was good coverage, there was issues with background noise, etc. And then they were having to buy the same thing again. They're having to do it properly the second time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, again, so thank you for that research. I found it incredibly insightful, and I think it actually helped us learn new things as well. So it was incredibly useful exercise. I mean, clearly there's been a huge amount of discussion about hybrid over the last few years, and I think in some ways people are, exhausted by the topic.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly. But rather than raking over the coals of the past, what do you see is coming? I mean, the future changes in the way that people work, both in office and online collaboratively. We've got areas obviously like AI, Microsoft Copilot, and so on coming. So, how do you think those are going to be affecting the future of how we're all working?
Well, I think first, really, we should stop calling it hybrid work and just call it work. We look at the trends. We've done a lot of research in terms of forecasting who's going to be in the office, when are they going to be in the office, and this year really is where we see peak occupancy for a number of reasons, and we could talk for a long time about why that is. So we've got to adapt to this. and we need to get better at it. The AI can solve one of the top problems that's reported, which is the friction between moving between modes. You know, I've got everything set up at home, then I go into a meeting room, and the technology, maybe I don't know how to use it, it doesn't work, it doesn't know who I am, it doesn't know my settings. AI can really, really help with that, and people are starting to realise. I think the other big trend we're seeing is in terms of employee wellness.
Yeah.
You know, companies are really starting to realise now that maybe people working at home all the time in front of a desk isn't the best way to do it. And also, you know, we're starting to see people becoming ill, becoming stressed. And as we saw in the research, audio quality has a big effect on actually the cognitive load of people. So if you're in meetings all day with bad audio quality, you'll get more and more stressed, and that's not good for anybody. So I think we'll start seeing that. The other thing is companies looking at the workplace as a way of attracting and retaining talent now.
Yes.
And looking at how the technology can do that. And then the big thing that, again, we could talk all the time about is productivity of home workers versus office workers and trust, etc. But what we do know is a lot of those things you can solve by giving people the right technology and teach them how to use it properly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think your point about, you know, the use of AI to actually help improve the environment is, you know, for example, when we're in a crowded room, you can actually hear and understand somebody on the other side if you're looking at them. I mean, our brains are actually effectively doing that signal processing for us,
Exactly.
But it does use a lot of cognitive capacity. But with the technology, for example, the digital signal processing, you can actually take away a lot of those artifacts and problems, which actually does make the day less tiring and your work experience more enjoyable. Just like this conversation. So just to wrap up, really, let's cast our minds forward to, let's say, in 2029, we come back to ISE as a CIO or senior decision maker in IT department. What sort of things would you have done in 2024 to make you say, I've had a really good 5-year run?
I think the real trend is a focus on manageability and predictability. You know, what we're seeing this year is a lot of systems that can actually monitor the equipment and see whether, you know, is it connected in the meeting room. Are the devices that have batteries about to run out of battery? Is that meeting room going to be used on certain times? What's the best thing to book? So just reducing that friction by preemptively solving problems and guiding people. I think that's the thing. This is the year where it's, okay, well, let's actually measure what we're doing, but we'll use usually AI to predict what the problems are going to have, and we're going to solve them before they happen. So I think that would be something to look back on with satisfaction, hopefully.
Oh. Well, that's very interesting, because actually, we're previewing our new Shure Cloud services here this week. So that's
very topical.
sounds like we're on the same wavelength there. That's wonderful. Mick, thank you ever so much. Thank you so much for the time coming to see us here at ISE 2024. And for those who are interested, all the great research that we've done with IDC is available on the Shure website, and we have a dedicated page for ISE where you can get links to that. So Mick, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for coming. Pleasure as always. Have a good rest of the show.
Thank you.